Hello, everyone, and welcome to Answer the Call. The timing on this is going to seem a little bit weird, so I'm going to start out with this. If you're watching on YouTube and you immediately see the title and you comment below, well, they changed the timers back to lower, the insurance timers. That's not really what the show's about today. The show's titled, Your Thoughts on the Star Citizen's Insurance Changes. But for me, it's more about your thoughts on why. Why did they do it in the first place? So, starting out with this, in a game that is this buggy, I don't feel like increasing the possible punishments for anybody where a majority of the time, the reason for the punishment, like losing your ship or dying, is because of a bug or server instability. So, I made a post on Spectrum, replying to these changes saying, I don't really understand why you would do this now. And then I posed a question. You guys talk about priorities all the time. Why, it's all about priorities. It's all about priorities. So why, I asked the question but didn't get a response, was why was this prioritized? What was the reason for prioritization now? Because I wasn't really buying what was in the actual thread. And I thought it was like a little bit weird. But didn't get a response for that, so oh well. Next, that's the kind of like, why now the game is buggy. The thing that really upsets me, and the thing that I think that there is absolutely no excuse for, we talked about this a bit before the show, is let's go way back to an interview with Aaron Roberts talking about the first time we heard about staggered development and the fact that they would have go, no-go meetings leading up to the release of a patch, and if a feature was not ready, it would get pushed to the next patch. When did these insurance changes come into the game? These insurance changes came into the game the day before live. That is inexcusable. That's not how this works. That's not how this is supposed to work. That's not how you told us you were going to develop the game. And this is why. Something like this that affects all the players should be in Evocati, and if it makes it through the feedback there, it should be in Wave 1, and if it makes it through the feedback there, Wave 2, 3, and then in. That's where you do your iterations. You do not do your iterations in a live build. You do them in the PTU. That's why we have a PTU, guys. I'm very disappointed by that. The other thing is, I think going back is, to me, my opinion, and what I see, how I see the game, with my blinders on for myself and my personal opinions, is that the reason for these changes seem like there's one edge case group, which is like PvP players that have bounties on their head are getting torpedoes fired at them nonstop. So we need to address that in some way. Yes, we need to address that in some way. But they're an edge case, so I'm kind of like, this change negatively affects more people than it positively affects. So is it a good change? I don't know. The other thing that I would love to touch on is the insurance mechanic in general. It costs money to claim your ship quicker. It does not cost money to claim your ship in general. The main mechanic is waiting. And Star Citizen has a lot of mechanics where you're standing around doing nothing. Quantum travel, elevators, trains, insurance, refining now. Is that the answer to creating risk and reward? So I posed that question to you guys as well. With that said, I think my answer to this is, and the only one I really have, because I really don't know what the answer is if you're like taking aggressive action. I've seen this in other video games. If it's not just if you have a crime stat, but if you're engaged in some sort of aggression, like a combat scenario, maybe a timer goes off. If you're killed in that scenario, then you have longer wait times or something. I don't know. But I think you could tie something to aggression possibly, but then at the same time that seems completely out of whack for uh, a a miner who blows up a rock and dies, right? So there has to be some balance. There should be more risk for a PvP player than a miner, but should the reward? I don't know. There's a lot of issues there. So I'll leave you guys there with that. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, comment below. Watching in Twitch chat, comment, that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you're watching on Twitch and you want to join the show, ! Discord in chat. Watching on YouTube, you can join our Discord, but obviously you need to be here live. Twitch.tv/SaltEMike, Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern time. All right, let's get into the caller queue here, and we're going to start out with the Q. What's up, the Q? How you doing, man?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Good. What are your thoughts on all this, and how do you feel about it? I feel pretty strongly, obviously, and I just don't think it was the right time. It just seems weird timing is all for me.
I don't think it's the right time either. I have a lot of thoughts. You know me if I talk too much. But let me start by answering your first question you just posed recently on your channel was how much time does the average person spend gaming? There was a study called State of Online Gaming by Limelight Networks that did a study on actual people playing online games. And the average is 6.5 hours a week. Now, obviously, no one plays. Well, very few of those respondents actually played every single day. It's the average was between 2 and 3 days a week. So we'll say between 2 and 3 hours a gaming session 2 to 3 times a week. I think that's a fair statement based on that study.
Seems
so that's
fair
how
to
much time. So I just wanted to throw that stat out there.
Yep. And then given that in Star Citizen, how long are we spending waiting for the actual game that we want to play?
Exactly.
It's quite a bit, and that's why I posed that question is like, is this the right choice? I don't have the answer for what the right choice is, but that doesn't mean I can't pose the question, right? So I don't know.
So there's a few things. I mean, this is a complex topic, but there's a few things I'd like to talk about.
Go for it.
First and foremost, the post, as you quite eloquently stated, was not only claimed the reason for the change, but they highlighted it and bolded, in the post. The reason for it was specifically for people getting around the payment of missiles. That was their main bolded reason for making this change.
It's a big edge case.
Right? So they also stated in there that, based on their metrics, this is what they're coming up with. Well, unfortunately, the way metrics work is they can be interpreted many ways. I think a lot of people actually understand that concept. So let's take a look at like a metric they might look at. They look at how many people are claiming ships. Then they narrow that down. See how many of those people were empty on fuel and ammo, right? Then they look and see how many of those people were recently engaged in combat. All those things are metrics that they can currently check.
Yep.
What they cannot see is when a player lands at a pad and whether or not they could rearm and refuel and repair, because the function is not even being called because it's red, right? So your average statistician that's looking at these numbers in the background are throwing out these numbers to the developer saying, here's what we're seeing, but they in no way are playing the game in the way that we are to understand the background of those numbers. I don't think.
What's crazy
is what I'm seeing.
How can they not know? It has to be separate teams, right? Like this might be the problem with having
it is separate teams
all over the place.
People that do database mining and pulling out statistics is completely different than developers, right? They're two different groups, at least in most companies. I mean, unless it's a really tiny company. I'm pretty sure CIG has different people to do these jobs.
Sure.
But even if it was the developer, what I can say is, for the most part, developers are not subject matter experts of the product. Yeah. They are not. They may be at any specific time a subject matter expert when they're actively working on a particular function or functionality for the game, because they're actively, working on it. But then that developer then moves to something else on their to-do list, and then something else. And when you work with developers closely, you realize that 2 or 3 things later, they've forgotten what they were even doing on item 1 to begin with. Secondly, there's a reason the QA team is completely different than your engineering team, because the engineers know what not to do, so they don't even press those buttons.
Yeah,
they don't do these things. They know exactly what not to do. Matter of fact, a lot of the responses from the engineers when QA tells them something, it's often, well, why is the user doing that? That's dumb.
listen,
Because
the
engineer knows in their brain how they designed it.
I know I complain about Star Citizen a lot, but you don't need to make little child noises in the background to make fun of me, okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry, buddy.
No, you're good. I'm kidding.
This particular computer doesn't have RTX voice on it, so you're just going to hear him.
No, it's fine. I just really making a joke. But the one thing that I would pose here is, where was Bayor in this situation for us? Because that's
a good question. That is a very good question.
I'm sure
but I think
he was
a better
there.
question is, why haven't they created SME groups?
What's an SME group?
Subject matter experts.
Okay.
Right. You get a group of miners together to poll them. Get NDA and all that stuff they do with to poll them about changes. Hey, you guys mine. That's what you do for 90% of your gameplay. Give us some feedback. You guys PvP for 90% of your gameplay. Give us some feedback. You guys trade. Give us some feedback.
You don't think that's what happened?
I don't think that happened. No.
Well, I don't think it happened in the way that you said it, but don't you think that they listened to PvPers' feedback and said, hey, this is a problem, and that's why they made the change?
After the fact on the forums, I believe is how they're doing it, which oftentimes is a vocal minority.
Sure, of course. So
where subject matter experts who play that specific task all day, every day, are going to usually give pretty decent feedback. That's why you have Space Cutlet Noodle on there. Even though they're PvPers, and you might think, oh, they just have a vested interest in having everything their way. Since that's all they do, they actually see both sides of the coin, and they give very good feedback on what they know.
Yeah, that's why I like to have them on the show.
And not just leave it to Spectrum, I think would be a better thing. That's what we do in our company. We use our customers all the time for SME groups, because there's no way you can get your QA team to test the infinite amount of possibilities of things. Usually your QA team gets it at max a week before it's got to go live. And they have to just test the stuff mainly that was just developed. They don't do a ton of regression testing. They just don't have time to do that in most companies. I'm pretty sure this one's not any different than that.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to use these SME groups to say, hey, give us feedback on these functions you are using daily. Tell us how that works for you guys, so that we can make a better educated decision. And I don't think CIG is doing that. I do not believe they're doing that.
Yeah. And it's a really tough situation, because they look like they were going to stand pretty pat, and then they came back and then say that we're iterating on this. Like, it's constantly going to be an iteration. The other thing that I felt like mentioning at the beginning, and I didn't, was the initial thought process, or the initial timers, or the initial prices that you decided to choose are so off. Like, you can look at them and instantly know that they were bad. And the fact that those end up in the game and are asking for feedback seem weird.
Sometimes it seems that way. The decision makers aren't always the people who have the most insight into the game. They're getting feedback from the people they hire, the people they trust. And just like the telephone game in real life, you whisper into one person's ear, the next person. Sometimes the decision makers, by the time it gets to that level in the chain, the information's been twisted a little bit. Right, not quite as accurate as the original low-level person that has all the information. And the bigger a company gets, the more likely that is to happen. So I don't think that's unusual. That happens. We put out bad stuff. I say that. I don't mean to use that word, bad stuff all the time from our customers' perspective. Like, why the hell did you do this? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And they put in reports through our CTAC, our Customer Technical Assistance Center, who then feeds it into the next level, who feeds it into product management, who feeds it into engineering. When you go through all these steps, sometimes things get misinterpreted as to what the real problem was to begin with, and then things get implemented that make things worse.
Yeah.
That does happen.
Yeah. I think
And by no means is CIG the most efficient company. I don't think
no,
anyone's
of
going to claim that.
course. No, and the whole thing is, I mean, I think you pointed out is that people making decisions, like, you know, if this comes from Chris or Aaron or Tony or something like that, like they have the vision of the, and this was mentioned in the post too, is like we have this wider vision of what the game will actually be, and we want these things to be more punishing, and we don't want to, you know, we want to kind of ease your way into it, but like, I mean, we've been punished. Like, I don't know, man. We've been getting punished by your game long enough. It's
And I think a lot of that comes back to what I was saying with the SME groups. I really think if they
Yeah.
got some focus groups that they could rely on and trust, I think that would alleviate a lot and stop relying on Spectrum. Spectrum really is a vocal minority.
Yeah.
It honestly is. And the only people that tend to post on there are people that are posting about a specific thing that they don't like, and it's a vast majority of them are negative.
And it's
There's
so
not a lot
broken.
of positive feedback.
It's so broken because I made a post about that on that thread while I was streaming, and it got upvoted a couple. Yeah, you were there. It got upvoted a couple times, and then bang, it's at the top, and then up. Everybody clicks on the top thing. That is broken. Whether they agreed with me or not, which I think obviously it had a lot of upvotes, so a lot of people agreed with it. It's just broken. So like you're getting feedback from a thing that can be easily manipulated, and that's not good. I didn't intend to manipulate it, and it just happened.
No, I know, and it was actually it was still valid because I don't think it was the appropriate time. There's
the point could be right or wrong. It doesn't matter.
A few reasons why my ship has been either destroyed or I had to destroy it. That has nothing to do with combat. You know, 30K.
Yep.
Lately, right, just since 312, landing on a pad and desyncing through the pad and your ship blowing up. Yep. That's happened a couple times. I mean, unable to repair, rearm, or refuel. Ship bugged after a repair, rearm, and refuel, where it looks like visually that you got your engine or you got your gun, but it doesn't shoot, or you don't have missiles. Hitting an invisible asteroid. I mean, there are lots of reasons, right? There was one good post on in response to what you had posted in there, and what my wife had responded to you was one of the major insurance fraud things going on right now, if you want to call it that, you know, from a role play perspective, is when people go to Station B and their ship's at Station A, and then they recall that ship to Station B instead of going to Station A to get it. Yep. Right. But I think that's an easy enough fraud to look at. If ship is stored at Station A and you're trying to bring it to Station B, make the timer bigger, period. I mean, that's an easy enough metric for them to if then that, I would think. You know, that doesn't apply to ships being blown up, or the fact that you fell out of your ship in quantum, or any other number of reasons why you lost your ship.
Sure.
They do need to test insurance timers.
That's his wife in the background, by the way.
The length of the time is not relevant to testing whether or not those timers work.
Yeah.
Right. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Right. I think we can all agree on that. But to get people into the understanding that insurance timers will go up probably tenfold. I mean, I remember Dev talking, this is a while ago. They were saying some cap ships could take up to a week to claim. You know, it was like a ridiculous amount of time. It makes sense to me. You know, there's only one manufacturer of that. It's manufactured in this one location, you know, 5 systems away. There's all these people wanting it. You know, there's limited resource. I get that. It makes sense. But
it all makes sense. But then from a gameplay perspective, I still was sitting there going like, what? Like, even when I saw that back then, I was like, that was never a good idea.
I don't know. I like the idea. I like the idea.
Oh God. I don't know.
I think what's happening is with streamers, you, my wife, or people who've been backing a long time, who have spent more money than your average backer. So you have, I guess, 3 groups, I would say. You have the beginner people that only have like entry-level ships, and their reclaim timers are damn near instant. Doesn't affect them at all. Let's be honest. Does not affect those people. You have the people at the other far end of the spectrum that have 100+ ships. Doesn't affect those people at all. Okay. Insurance claimers does not affect those people at all. They just grab another ship. Doesn't matter. It's the people in the middle who have been convinced that, hey, you should trade in your one Cuddy Black and get the Mercury Star Runner. And that's your one main ship. And that was your budget for the game. And now when it blows up, you have to wait 10 minutes. That's the people it's hurting the most.
Yeah.
But I think with cap ships, come on, those are org type ships. If it takes a week, sucks to be that org. I mean, they shouldn't have lost a damn cap ship.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay.
I mean,
Yeah, that's fine.
This is how it is.
What I'm saying is the trickle down from that, like the week, then what's the next lowest tier, and then the next, because then it trickles down and it's still just really screwed.
Yeah.
But yeah,
no, it does need to be balanced. I give you that, but I do see the concept of a quantum economy. There's only so many resources to build these ships. There's only so much time in a day, for these builders to build them, and then they got to be shipped to you so many systems over. All these things, from a role play perspective. But this is waiting citizen. I mean that point that you made earlier is very valid. We were talking to someone new the other day on our stream. They jumped in. They're like, "Hey, tell us about the game." So they got the game, and about 2 hours later, they came in. They're like, "I don't know how to get out of this city. I've been stuck in the city for 2 hours now.
I've been riding on the train. Yeah, not good.
I don't know what to do. There's a lot of waiting in this game that involves not fighting or playing or doing those things."
Yeah.
But I think I hit up most of the points there that I wanted to talk about. I don't want to eat up all your time. I do appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. We got an engaging topic for you. I always like having you on.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. You have a good one.
All right, thank you. Be good. Our next caller is Void Hull. Void Hull, welcome, man. Can you hear me, Void?
Hey, how's it going?
There you go. Hey, what's up, man? Void, hello? Can you mute the stream and listen to me in Discord?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, okay, because it sounded like it was delayed. But all right, how you feeling about this? What do you want to talk about on the subject?
Well, I actually think the Q brought up some pretty good points, but there's a lot there that I think he's being pretty kind on.
Okay.
And I think he also delved into, imagination land as well, which sure. I know we like to avoid. But as far as it affecting basically the medium people, the MSRs of the group, which they sold to quite a lot because it's the Mary Sue of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't affect just those people. The people who have one ship when it was initially rolled out, which was inappropriate to begin with. Let's say if it was a Talon, if you didn't pay the cost, it would have been a 20-minute wait. If you did, it was still 6 minutes.
Sure. I think he would be putting there's Mercury Star Runner and Talon in the same category, though. He the good bit of feedback from I think this is what he was implying, is that the good bit of feedback from the change was that entry-level ships should be near instant. So your casual player loses their ship, they get back in, hop right back on the horse and play, and anything above that, that's when we're going to start to have some form of punishment, whether you agree that the current form is correct or not.
Yeah, I think for me, most of it was just rolling it out to begin with at all. Just the timing of it before they take their Christmas break, with how alpha everything is. The main reason being ship missiles is still bad because you can't even restock right now.
Mm-hmm.
There was just no reason to do it in my point of view.
Agreed.
I tried to actually think of ways that they could even roll this out in the future too. As far as insurance, and there's not going to be a lot of right ways for them to do it because a decent amount of it is now tied to real life money for a lot of the backers.
Yep.
And then as far as when you blow up mining, do you lose your consumables or do they come back with the ship?
You lose them.
You just lose them.
Yep.
Okay. And that's the thing is I can't see a good way that they would have rolled this out pre-iCache to begin with. Because let's say you're driving a car in real life, a lot of insurances, if you have something in the car, it's not paying for that, it's paying for the car. So
of course, yeah.
If you're carrying cargo, if you're carrying consumables, if you have missiles, ballistics, anything like that, I think that those should be considered if they're trying to prevent people from respawning just to reload their ship and everything. They should have targeted what you were carrying on the ship to begin with, but then again, you still can't do that because the restock's not working. I had trouble figuring out a way that it was a good idea in any form of common sense to have rolled out an insurance at all where they increase the time.
Sure. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I see somebody in Twitch chat saying, didn't they say they're going to lower the timers? That's not the point of the discussion. The point was thinking that it was a good idea in the first place. And making sure that they understand that if you're going to make a mechanic that directly affects a majority of the players, that getting the proper feedback and spending the time gathering feedback on something like that is very important. And the level of importance for this specific change was way too low, and it just was shot in. It was almost like you know how like in the American government where there'll be a bill about port security. I'll give a great example. There was a bill about port security in 2008, I think, 2008, and they slapped on an additional thing to ban online poker. It was like just throwing in this change at the end without getting, without it having to do anything with the actual change. And then everybody votes on it because it was like, oh yeah, terrorism bad, And like that's kind of what this felt like. It was just kind of thrown in there.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see why they would have done this at all. Like, what exactly were you actually testing? Because if you're going to add something in the game, pre-iCache or server meshing, it better add some type of feature, even if it's like a tourism feature. Like if I need to ride a shuttle to a station somewhere to go pick up my repaired or replaced ship, then do that. But if you're gonna make me wait 20 minutes, and that's another thing too, that the Q brought up that I thought was a good thing. He kind of went into the statistics of playing per week. So I think he said around 6 hours was the average.
Yeah, well, and the play session was like 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, if you spread out 6 hours throughout like 7 days, though, some people can only hop on for an hour. A lot of time you're already fighting bugs, and then to assume that a player is making decent AUEC when bounties don't work. Mining, you can have desync and blow up. Trading, you hit 30Ks. Like if you're that new player, like paying, I think it was around 5-6K for like a small fighter to get back. If you're that type of person, it's not even about the timer anymore. It's about way more than that. And then even if you're like, I'm concierge, but I'm just over the cap for it. So I kind of have a ship specialized in each thing. If I lose one of my ships, that whole role of the game for me, unless I pay that fee for however long I'd have to wait, is dead until I get that ship back.
Sure. Yeah. I was gonna, before you went into the second point, I was gonna ask you about the money factor. Like I was mining yesterday and it was very difficult, and I blew up a few times because of the desync, and
yeah, I clipped it.
yeah. And I was losing my mind because I had to wait 6 minutes for my prospector. And then on top of that, I think I spent like 40,000 on claims. Something like crazy like that. Like for a new player, that's kind of tough. What if you rented the prospector?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
kind of,
and
the
then,
claim times is crazy.
Can you even replace the mining head or no?
No, not on the rental.
I think you lose it. Yep. Okay, all right.
So it's
yeah, I mean,
it's tough, man.
I don't know how you would implement. I was trying to imagine how you would actually implement it correctly, and kind of like you said, it's like I can't think of a good way that they would do it at all, let alone right now. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. Is, I don't know. I think one of the biggest problems is we don't know what the grand vision of Star Citizen is, because it's never been laid out on the table. We just know it looks really cool, and there's potential for it to be really cool, and hopefully it is. But I don't think that the grand scheme of things is kind of laid out for anybody. Chris keeps saying it's in his head, and I don't know, maybe it's in like Tony Z's and a couple other people's heads that they're all on the same page. But the entire company kind of needs to be on the same page, and I think we need to be included in that as we are sort of like quote unquote investors. Like at the only thing that we expect in return is to understand what that vision is and be updated on what it is when it changes and if it changes. And this one, it's just hard to see how this mechanic will be enjoyable or fun or achieve the goal that it's trying to achieve without being so much of a burden that it pushes people away from the game.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why they'd want to start testing something like this sort of early.
Yeah. Sure.
But it's a system that is only important if the majority of your game is already in place, because it counts on, it's supposed to keep your economy capped. Like, I'm sure eventually they're going to roll it into their commodity system, where, you know, might be affected by what's being shipped and mined in that area.
Absolutely.
And everything like that. But like right now was just the wrong time, and I can't think of an actual objective argument against that.
I would just pose this question to you: is it clearly does affect a section of the community? Do we just ignore them? Something had to be done for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not even that. I think the people who it quote unquote didn't affect either have multiples of each role ship and are actual whales, or either have very thick skin or don't want to solely play this game.
I don't know. I mean, like,
it out for them.
I heard Space Cutlet. I heard the Dark Law. I haven't asked Moist Noodle, but they like the idea of not getting just torpedoed constantly over and over again by people. And when they actually kill those players because they're not good PvPers, that they don't just get to come back and try again that easily. They get punishment.
Is that an issue with torpedoes, or is that an issue with insurance?
I would say both, because what they'll do is they'll fire their torpedoes, and I think they would. I think the thing that they were saying is they would fire torpedoes, either die or just leave, respawn, try again, kill themselves, respawn, grab another torpedo, don't have to pay for it, and then go at it again. And I think like there are people that are obviously skirting the system, but the whole thing is there's people that are exploiting and making tons of money. Are we going to make a huge drastic change now in this game?
Right.
Because a few people made a few credits? I don't know. But I
really start charging $100K for each time you need to replace a ship because those people who exploited the game.
Exactly. No. And the one thing that I would say though is I don't want to ignore the PvP player, and I don't want to say that their opinions are irrelevant. I think because my channel focuses less on PvP, I wonder if the more people that would come on this show are less inclined to PvP and maybe don't feel the pain that they might be feeling with the current system. I get
Actually, one of my main is PvP oriented with this because of the claim timers. Like my one main ship, right, for PvP right now as it is, because I trade things in and out here and there, is the Talon.
Okay.
I couldn't restock it, and I don't hop on that often, so I don't feel like spending like 6K. Like there was times where I'd walk away from the game for 20 minutes because my Talon blew up randomly landing on a pad.
Yeah.
And I couldn't like I think it takes like an hour or 2 hours just to find somebody to PvP sometimes. So then to add in an extra like 40 minutes here and there, I don't know. Like I do think it's really important to listen to people who PvP, because I think the closer we can keep things balanced throughout the alpha phases, the better it's going to be in beta, and I think that's what brings most people in.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I try to be with the show as much as I possibly can, is see all sides of it, and I think that's kind of what the queue started with, was like, hey man, we need to have these like focus groups with people of all walks when we're making changes to the game that will affect everybody. Like if you're just making a change to the game that, I don't know, maybe it's like a balance change to a dogfighter, like do you need to ask what a miner thinks about that? I would say no, but I don't know how you find these focus groups though, because you know, do you just go to streamers? Like I don't like that idea either. I mean, the whole point of this show is just because you're a streamer doesn't mean that your voice should be heard more than anyone else's.
Yeah. I think if restock actually worked, like if they actually made sure that that was completely fixed, if they ran the insurance off of you've spent, like as far as consumables, or mining ship or missiles or ballistics or fuel, if all that worked in your restock refuel, like affecting the timer based on what you spent would immediately fix every single issue. It's just you need to make sure that part of your game works.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree for sure. Well, Void, is there anything else you want to add to the show before we let you go?
No, I think that's about it.
All right, man. Well, thank you for calling in. I appreciate it. And thank you for clipping all my wonderful moments that I have on stream.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, later, buddy. All right, our next caller here is a Windlord. Windlord, welcome, man. How you doing?
Hey, dude. What's up?
What's going on?
Not much, just in quarantine. So if you hear banging behind me, it's probably my kids climbing the wall. But
that's all right. We've already had babies yelling at me. There would be.
So ahead.
The babies were disagreeing with my points of view in the background.
yeah, they're the ones to listen to for sure. But
yeah,
cool. Yeah. Anyway, so I think that maybe people are overthinking this a little bit too much, which is kind of usual for our community a little bit. Is that we think about some of the decisions that CIG make maybe a little bit too much.
Okay.
I don't think this was some deep decision that was made based on feedback or taking lots of numbers and running the numbers or anything. I just think it was just a knee-jerk reaction, and not a particularly good one at that. So changing the numbers on the insurance claims, it doesn't cost you any developers. It's just changing a number. It's not like, I forget who was saying, the previous caller was saying, it should have changed an if to a then to make sure that people can't claim from one station to another station. But that would then require a coder. It requires somebody who can actually go and do that. Whereas this is just somebody's gone, oh, this is happening with the missiles. Let's go and let's change that straight up. And yeah, I think that's basically, unfortunately, the main reason behind the change. I don't think it's 100% a bad move.
No, me neither.
And I think long term they are going to move in this direction.
Do you think they should?
Do I think they should?
About the direction. What do you think of this direction? Because that's the one thing that I'm trying to touch on with everybody to see if they have a better solution to the current landscape, but I don't know if there is one. I think that's why we have what we have.
Honestly, it's a really hard thing to try and balance.
Sure.
As you mentioned before, it's something they mentioned a long time ago, is that, hey, some of the capital ships are going to take X amount of days and weeks or whatever. One thing I would mention that's maybe a positive out of it, though, is that you can see that generally CIG are trying to get more and more people to play together.
Yes.
They're trying to kind of, and you can see that with the mining, for example, and the fact that now some rocks can't be mined unless you've got a mole or you've got one or two prospectors more than just the standard one. They are trying to incentivize that, and I think that's a good thing for the game. And the question is then maybe how you can do that to more of a degree. And I think in a certain respect, if your middling ship that's maybe supposed to be a multi-role ship isn't going to be available, I think somebody mentioned before, I think for the Mercury, it's like 50 minutes nearly for a claim time. But that's supposed to be a multi-role ship. And if you're playing it as a multi-role, then the chance that the other people that you're playing with or should be playing with have a different ship means that you shouldn't be so crippled in this. And maybe you can do the claim while you go off and do something with their ship. And so there is a kind of other side to that as well that I think is a good thing, that it maybe should bring us a bit more together in terms of playing the game together.
Sure. I can't disagree with that. I love the idea of lowering everything for the smaller ships and the single kind of player and then the new players. I thought that's a really good change. and then the other ones definitely need some balance and iteration, like they said. But
Right.
I just think the initial thought process just like made no sense, and that's like
Yeah,
what game were you playing? What game did you think we were when for some of these things? And I know what game you think we're gonna be playing, but it's not the one we're playing now. You know, it's just kind of weird.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd
I'm
agree
sorry.
with that. I think they gave the reason was like that they wanted to remove the missile spam or the pad ramming or whatever it was, by basically disincentivizing people from doing those things because of the extra wait time.
Yeah.
But honestly, those are things that shouldn't be fixed just by um, spamming in an extra long number to punish people in that respect. They should be things that are fixed through in-game systems. So
Yeah.
like with the pad ramming, they tried to do through the law system, right? So they've tried to implement turrets and these kind of things, and taking away the kind of the walled system where you couldn't shoot anywhere around a space station, and now
Mhm.
you've got a lot more gameplay involved with that because they've tried to do it through using the law system. And I think the same should have been done or could have been done with the missiles. We had previously all of the your purchases in terms of ship add-ons, they would be lost every time you did a claim.
Yeah.
And people were so happy when they brought that in and said, now, when you make the claim, those things are going to come back again. And it was like, wow, that's amazing because, I've got some progression back. But in the same respect, it should be then possible to reverse that and say, okay, if you claimed without these missiles, either you can pay a penalty to purchase those missiles back again
Yep.
when you claim your ship, or they're simply not there if you just do a straightforward claim and you still have to buy them afterwards.
Yep.
And I don't see why they can't use that same system to then kind of remove the missiles from the factor as opposed to re-including them again. And I just think it's just been a bit lazy as a first implementation, but you can see why, because it's kind of quick. It's quick and easy fix,
Sure. Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I still keep going to this stupid idea, I think. I think it's really unbalanced and stupid. But the idea of if you were taking an aggressive action, then maybe you lose your components. If you took an aggressive action against a player that has no crime stat, like a blue, and then let's use three colors: blue, orange, red. Say you take an aggressive action against the blue, you become orange. If you kill them and they give you a crime stat, then you become red. But if you're in the orange, then maybe your penalty would be sort of what you said, but worse, in the sense of maybe you go back, you get your ship hull, but you don't get the components and upgraded stuff back or something, because you've taken your ship that was supposed to be used for civilian purposes and done illegal acts or are doing military purpose stuff. I don't know. I think it's a bad idea, but I still keep throwing it out there because I think it has some merit, just not a lot.
Yeah. So I thought you were talking about different types of cutlass for a second. Okay. I don't mind the idea in terms of trying to differentiate between different player types. I can see some good in that, but I think in terms of putting that into law, how do you differentiate and say this kind of person would be seen differently by an insurance company if you were to then bring that back into kind of how it fits into the game? And if you've got insurance, you're either covered or you're not, depending on what you've done. I think maybe adding different kinds of insurance or like paid premiums and things is probably going to be the way they go long term, because
There's
I think they've
riskier
said that
people to insure.
so the LTI thing was always meant to be just a kind of just covering your ship hull, as far as I remember,
Mm-hmm.
and we all go mad for it because it's buy on the Robert Space Industries ship buying game,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah, where the actual
it
game is
doesn't.
played.
Yeah, exactly. That's the real game, right? But I think long term there will be different kinds or maybe different levels of insurance that they end up putting in to kind of cover for those, whether you're industrial type who's covering um, your cargo, or whether you're a PvPer and you get some special military protection, or whether it's pirate insurance. I don't know, but I can't think of a better idea than you can either, to be quite honest with you. And I think, I think we should be happy that at the end of the day, CIG listened to all of the negative feedback and actually went back and reneged and said, hey, we're going to change this back again a little bit and at least balance for some of the lower level ships. It's good that they are listening like that, and because they haven't always. So maybe just take some of the positives where we can get them, and don't think too deeply about the knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, agreed. Well, is there anything else before we let you go, Winlord? I did appreciate it so far. It's been a good call.
Don't. I don't know how you can diss Spectrum. It's a wonderful thing. Live your life by the Picard palm, as I do. But no, nothing else.
Screw Spectrum.
Just Merry Christmas to you. Okay.
You too. Happy holidays.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Be good, bud. All right, our next caller is Jerry. Again, I will preface this before we bring Jerry in. Jerry is a former CIG developer, works at a different company now. So we'll most likely not be touching on any of his experiences at the company, but just his experiences as a game designer. So Jerry made the 890 jump mission as well as the Caterpillar break people out of jail mission, okay? Just to give you guys some reference to Jerry. Hey, Jerry. What's up, man?
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Good. I had to give everybody a little prologue for you.
I was watching the stream, and I appreciate it. Obviously, as per usual, we don't break any NDA stuff here because we're not that kind of stream. No leaks.
Nope.
Plus, I've been out of the company quite a while now, so it's just interesting to come in and see other people's perspectives on how things are progressing. There's a few things I wanted to mention. And I guess some of them are kind of questions as well, and that I'd like to have your opinion on. So someone in chat mentioned that the main reason for the changes of insurance is to, test and figure out pain points and collections. Now, you had the concern of, and I'm going to talk slower to make sure that I think about everything I'm saying so I don't say anything naughty. So I hope you can appreciate that. The biggest question for me is if this stuff is going to be affected by a dynamic economy, right? Because if it is the balancing that they're going to be doing to help with that work later on? Or is this not going to be affected by a dynamic economy? And is it going to be something that needs to get ironed out now so that they don't have these concerns and problems later on, right? Because I know you question like, oh, is there any point doing this now? Well, my question is, if they don't do this now, because obviously it's had a negative impact for you and a few other people's experiences, and then they need to go back to it and do it later on, would you not complain that it's taken longer for them to do it later on because they've had to go back and do it later on in the dev cycle? Like, Probably. Is it not better to find out these problems earlier and fix it if it's something that's going to stick around, and then maybe benefit the dynamic economy later on?
Sure. I mean,
like, I feel like that's something that's you're seeing it from a very user end standpoint right now.
Sure.
But it might be that the data that's collected has a much bigger and more beneficial impact. I'm just trying to give CIG the benefit of the doubt, right? Because a lot of people go, "Oh, this is stupid," but there's probably a very calculated reason for why all this is being done.
Yeah, and that's why I posed the question in that Spectrum post that I made. Is like, I'm not calling you stupid. I'm the stupid one here. Please educate me as to why.
Yeah, because
I still don't get it based off your post.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the one thing I will say is, I think the mechanic is stupid. I think the mechanic in general, I don't think it works.
It's one of those things. There's also the counter argument, right, to your thing of, well, if you balance in it for insurance, you can't buy insurance in-game with UEC at the minute. So what is it balancing for if eventually you're going to be able to buy insurance in-game with UEC, hypothetically, right?
Sure.
Because then it's like, what really is insurance? What is it balancing? And I think that's the thing that people need to have a clear statement given to them to say, this is why we are doing this, because I feel like it's still a bit up in the air.
Yeah, and the current insurance is
probably
That's probably
what's annoying you and annoying the other people that are finding this disruptive, is because you've had the change and you've been told that the change is, to test and find pinpoints of collection data which are going to be beneficial, but you haven't really been given the specifics as to why it's going to be beneficial. And I feel like if you had that answer, you'd probably be a bit less irritated by the thing that's going on, right?
Sure. The one thing is like, just going back to the, well, will this be affected by the dynamic economy or not? Like, I don't know where I want to go with this necessarily. I'm going to try and think on it before I say anything. Is pricing will change. Your timing might change. But I don't see getting the feedback now giving them any additional information when still, like, you can even go back to the point of, not only is the game incredibly buggy, but the game long term is so far from what we're playing now that will any of the information they gather help aid them in making a more balanced and properly implemented risk versus reward system. I
feel like
don't
it
think
will.
so.
I feel like it
Okay.
will. I feel like doing it early will give them a benefit, right?
Okay.
Like data, you don't just collect data for the sake of collecting data. There's always got to be something that you're quantifying at the end of it and some rationale.
Okay.
And it may very well just be that it's specifically to further community impressions, right? If there's a massive backlash on Spectrum of everyone saying this is garbage, change it back, then even the intended design of where they thought they wanted to take it, they might need to reevaluate that based off the backlash.
Yeah.
So
poor Xylo is just a punching bag.
Even though it might not be beneficial from a specific data standpoint of currency and time at the minute,
Mm-hmm.
you're also getting community data and feedback, which is just as important from anything.
Yeah.
Because that community feedback can then also impact the data that goes with it, right? It all correlates together.
You're probably the best person to pose this question to. Is there a better way of creating, if you were to design a system of risk and reward, how would you do it?
Jesus, that was a question I'm not prepared for at the minute.
Sorry.
You sprung me on that. You sprung that one on me. No, I mean, personally, as someone who just likes the game and likes to play it, I would rather these changes not be made at the minute and things just be as easy and accessible as possible.
Sure.
But it's not something I work on.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there are reasonings behind it. If I had my way, the ships would be a bit quicker to spawn. Like the thing as well is, this is a point I was going to make. I don't know the exact figures because I've not played. That my situation with my PC, I can only use my work PC. My home PC screwed at the minute.
Yeah.
So I've not been able to keep up to date with everything that's going on. When you've got if a carrack costs more and takes longer to bring back into the game, when realistically you make so much more money from a mole or a prospector, what's the benefit of having that carrack take longer and cost more to bring back? Is it just to avoid griefing? Like, there's a lot of, and this is what I said last time I was on there, there's so many moving cogs and questions with these types of things that really interest me in the nitty-gritty of it. But why would you make a carrack take longer and cost more to get back when at the minute in the game, a carrack is probably less beneficial than a prospector financially?
At the minute in the game, but I think
the minute in the game.
I think going back to your original point is the gathering feedback and there's reasons behind everything is that a carrack is made with more material than an Argo mole is.
Exactly right, which then theoretically could play into a dynamic economy standpoint of, well, if you're mining and if everyone's mining Hadonite or I don't know, whatever you use to make ships, and there's loads of Hadonite, then it's quicker for this ship to get reclaimed because they've got more parts to put it back together. So, I don't know. For me, I feel like, what was the exact wording of the ATC topic a minute? Is it just your thoughts and impressions? I feel like for me, it is definitely worthwhile this happening, but from a user standpoint myself, as someone who played the game, I wouldn't like it because you want to get in the action, like you say, right? You got to take elevators, you got to take trains, then you got to wait for your ship to spawn, and there's all this other stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
But I feel like I feel like it will have a benefit. You just might not see it straight away. But I do feel like it's got a purpose to happen and a purpose to carry out. I don't think there's anyone at CIG that does things willy-nilly off the cuff, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's why I posted it the way I posted it. I was like, please just give me more insight on what the...
Yeah, you want more reasoning as to why this decision has been made.
Sure. Because if you're going to make a decision that affects the entire player base, which this does in one way or another, I don't know, man. I don't know if
that was for me the biggest thing that stood out is when I asked in chat, does anyone know why this was changed? And all they got told was for testing. I feel like they need to know what it's testing and why it's testing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, they also mentioned in the post that I should really bring the post up, to be honest. I think it was also the idea of they want the game to bring the current game experience more and more towards what they envision the game as a whole, and it seems like they feel that
and I agree with
players
that.
Aren't being punished.
But your argument on this, and I remember this from when you were playing and streaming the other day, is, well, why are you trying to bring it in line with the game when the other stuff is still broken? This is what we always go back to. It's not the same people fixing the server issues that are the people that are balancing this stuff.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for them not to do it, because you can't hold off on something just because something else is broken, right? You shouldn't be like, well, we can't do this because this is broken. If you can do it, you have to try and accommodate for it.
Yeah, our goal here
is...
This was the sentence. Our goal is to have players commit to their choices and consider the consequences of actions taken in combat situations. For this, we factored in size of the ship. Like, are all the ships combat? Like, this is this is very clear.
Maybe that's a strange word. Word.
Man, the more I read this, the more I get upset, dude. The feedback was taken by like these fucking combat strike groups somewhere in Evocati that I don't know if they exist or not, or outside of Evocati where they're gathering feedback from just the friggin' combat players and not recognizing maybe how much this affects non-combat players. Wow, like the more I read this entire post is directed at combat and not directed at the entire player base. Like, did they not recognize that this would affect the entire player base? I don't know.
I don't know, man. It's fascinating stuff. Like, everything I think this patch has had an impact on the way players think about how they approach the game, right? Like, I know Detox was taking down the Idris and then died, and he ended up in prison, and he's like, oh, God, I'm stuck in prison now. And it's like, well, you chose to go and attack the Idris as a criminal, right? Like, it was something you had to think about the consequences of, and I think that's really interesting. That like, it gives you content, but you have to think about how you approach it. You know, do you have enough people there to support you and all this sort of stuff? So I feel like the time and the pricing of insurance changes is definitely going to be it's definitely going to have an impact on people thinking about how they approach the game, and the data that's gathered is always going to be beneficial. But I do understand your points of like, well, if I get hit by an invisible asteroid, it's kind of annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't not try and start doing your work because of edge cases, right?
Yeah.
And I know you might say it's not an edge case when it's happening a lot, but it's not.
No, that is still an edge case.
So you still need to do your work regardless of the other stuff that's there, and it's the other people's responsibility to say, you know, these are the factors that might affect the data. Is we've got this bug that people are encountering rather, and that's going to have an effect on it. But I feel like good stuff will come out of this.
Sure.
And I kind of just want to be in their corner, because I know you've not been angry, and I feel like the people that are in the corner for the changes are more in the corner of it for the PvP benefit as opposed to the development benefit of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah.
And to touch more on what I guess where you got an understanding of why it was what Xylo said here. He said, as mentioned in the original post, we fully acknowledge bug-driven reclamation, and finding the sweet spot between supporting a live service and testing is a hot topic internally. However, the team does need to test these economy-specific scenarios early. This type of testing is a key step in moving forward towards the intended experience and isn't exclusive to just insurance prices and timers. In fact, I'd expect similar frustrating tests to come when it's time to test physicalized inventories too. In the end, these early tests are essential to help us isolate pain points we can address sooner rather than later when their impact is more detrimental, right? So like that is a good point where the impact on us from a like actual game progress standpoint is non-existent because there is no game to progress in at the moment. So why not do it now? And that's kind of what you were touching on, right?
Like, it's more beneficial to get this out the way to give you a better scenario sooner rather than later, rather than wait longer and then you have more annoying tests that you have to go through. Like, you might have this and might not like the experience for a patch, and then maybe next patch it's fixed and it smiles better. And then the next annoying thing might come in that the players have to experience so that that can be balanced. But would you rather get this one thing out the way now and then fix for the next patch and balanced? Or would you rather just be happy with how it was and then have 6 things sprung in the game that all affect it and you've got to figure out all of this balancing all at once? Like, there's probably going to be people that go, you know, maybe even internally that aren't happy with the changes, but they know that the changes need to happen so they can find the right sense of direction for where the project should go.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that, and more so
I think
when
Xylo
you
did a good job with that post there. I
Agreed.
think Xylo summed that up pretty well.
Yeah, I agree too. That's the first time I read that actually, and I think
This
even
guy streams Star Citizen for 6 years, doesn't he?
bro, I also have a job. Come on, bro.
Ah.
The
I mean, you don't have a kid. You don't have a kid, so you
true.
know.
That's thank God. I'm with you on that one. The one thing that like you really make the point is like if we do it now where it's not that painful, like when there is actually more of a game to play and a more enjoyable experience, do you want to be going through these painful kind of tests, or would you rather go through them when it's
imagine
it's not a
you've
good
got
experience
this,
anyway,
like fully fleshed out game with all these roles that you can go through, right? Because Elliot's done all his awesome work with the bounty mission. You're like,
yep.
Oh, I'm about to go through this thing, and then they leave the insurance thing for so long, and you die, and then it's like, oh well, now I have to wait an hour because we didn't like them balancing it 8 months ago.
Yeah,
and now I have to. Now it gets more in the way of my actual game experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
And I think that's my stance. I think it is going to be beneficial, and it maybe just needed to be presented to people in a bit more of a clearer fashion as to why it was being done, because there seems to have been a bit of player-facing confusion, right?
Yeah. Well, all right, Jerry. I'm going to let you go because I am going to rant for a minute.
Okay, just before we go, obviously this is the last ATC of the year, so Merry Christmas everyone on YouTube and Twitch. This year's been mad, and Mike, thanks for everything you've done this year, man. You've helped a lot of us get through this bullshit, so it's really appreciated.
No problem, man. You helped me get through it as well, so thank you.
Nice one. Take it easy, bro.
Take it easy. Bye, Jerry. So, I'm going to rant, and here's why. The end of that call, I think Xylo in his post sums it up really well, right? But Jerry summed it up better than any written post could have. Because it's verbal communication, you're talking, you could have a back and forth, right? And that is the biggest issue and the biggest piece of feedback that I would give to the, what do they call it? The global video production or whatever. Whatever Lando's land is I feel like way too often we're getting a look inside development from this is how we make things. But when a significant change like this is on the horizon or getting implemented for feedback, I think that kind of Spectrum Post plus maybe a Star Citizen Live feedback back and forth kind of thing is really important. And to express the sentiment from the player base as well and have it directly coming from the developers again and saying, you know, we really need this, and this it might be why, or this is why. And you know what? You're gonna hate it now. I'm sorry, but it's gonna be better for you in the long run, right? And that is where I think CIG still really drops the ball. Is that at the beginning of every live stream, if there is a hot topic, getting into that, I think would be really great. You know, if there is a pressing topic, it is more important than somebody drawing a beach ball. That's where I think that I think CIG can get a lot more wins out of this, is that when things are explained verbally, it's a lot simpler. But all right, let's get to Bad Words. I've kept him on hold long enough. Bad Words is our final caller for the day. How you doing, man? Sorry for putting you on hold.
How
there.
you doing?
I had to get that bad boy out.
I kind of wish my call was before Jerry, because I had a few ideas that I would love him to comment on.
Ah, okay. Well, I'm sure he can comment in Twitch chat. Just keep an eye on there.
All right. Well, one thing I wanted to point out is, what are the two sinks? You have time and money in the game, right?
Sure.
The biggest problem is, as an MMO thing, the money is artificial. The time is real. It's a real commodity. What they should have done originally is they should have scaled the game world to a fictional time so that things made sense in a fictional sense for immersion. Right now, like if they had done it that way, then the sinks would have made at least a plausible, agreeable sense to players, and it would allow them to, in situations like this where they're trying to calculate time, they would have had a frame of reference that wasn't the real world. The problem is,
can I pause you there?
I'm saying, like,
but whether it's okay, I want to try and understand your point a little bit better. That's why I'm interrupting you. Is if I say it's going to be 1 hour of in-game time would equate to 5 minutes of real-world time, aren't you still going, we want the prospector to take 5 minutes?
Yes, but because the scale is, let's say a game day. Let's say there's a day in the game, whatever that 24-hour is. Everything in the game is scaled against that day. How many times does the train go through Lorville in a day? You decide 20, 30, 200, whatever. The speed of the train is now dictated by that day. The same as how long does it take to rearm your ship? An hour in the game time? That could be 2 minutes or whatever. But because you're using that fictional day overall, when you scale one thing, everything else scales equally. So it doesn't seem like you're just like have this random, okay, well, it takes me 5 minutes to do this, 10 minutes to do this, 20 minutes to do that. It would allow them the more flexibility to when they're trying to rationalize the total time to get into a ship or to leave the thing, it would scale better.
They could still don't get it though, because they still would take whatever sped up world that you're in and still base everything off of real world time. I
get what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm so confused by
the overall. Okay, let's say we're talking about this issue right now. Like you said, what made the Carrack reloading, a larger ship reloading versus a smaller ship in a time? Let's basically these time sinks are on top of other time sinks. So time sinks are adding up. There are more time sinks coming in. There's going to be infinitely more. So how much time again, you have to base this on the idea of it's real. You're playing this game at the idea of I have to go to work, I have all this stuff, so things to do. So the idea is, let's say a game world is in 5 hours. If everything's scaled in that you can get to a certain thing 5 hours, and they can, if let's say 5 hours turns out to be too much for the regular player, and they decide, okay, well, while we're still developing it, we'll make the game time 4 hours. If everything scales based on a fraction of that for the time
But they could just do the same thing with normal time, and what's the difference? I just still don't get what your point is. I don't get it. I'm so confused by this.
Oh, okay.
Is there a different way to explain it? I'm just not understanding.
I'm saying that it's the development issue, but anyway, it's okay. I guess I don't have the words for it then. So
you're bad words, man.
I am, but I will tell you how I believe I would have fixed the problem.
Okay.
How about that?
Sure.
I would have just, if you have to spawn a new ship, spawn it empty. So, assuming that the other mechanics work, you spawn a retaliator. It needs to be refueled. It needs to have all the stuff loaded in. It has to get restocked. And if you're restocking missiles, it takes longer. Immediately solves the immediately zerging effect, because now you've added time sinks to the combat people solely.
Okay.
Because you could add that. You could say, look, we'll make ballistic ammo better, but you're going to have to wait to load it up. We're going to make missiles better, but you're going to have to wait. Just like you do. I mean, ground combat already has this mechanic. When you die with your holding your gun, what happens to your gun?
It's
gone. Yeah. You have to go get a gun. You have to rearm it. You have to put stuff back on it. You have to set it up, and then you have to go back out. There's a time sink there.
Sure.
So why don't they do that for the ships?
I think that's the intention.
But that's not what they did.
Well, I think that's what the claim timer is supposed to almost mean. It's supposed to imply that, But wouldn't it be better to do it your way, where you kind of get the ship out fairly quickly or almost right away, and then you, the player, is interacting with the game and doing those things, and the time takes about the same, but the player is actively engaged in playing your game instead of staring at their other screen watching Netflix. Is that kind of what the point you're making? Because I like that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that what they're trying to do, I mean, the immediate issue that they were trying to address is the zerging. That we're just going to do this and deal with impunity. If the zerging, this zerging only seems to affect in a combat nature. So the only thing that is specific to combat, that yes, there is refueling and restocking with some of the industrial ships to an extent, but not to the same extent as the missiles and all the other stuff you would need in a combat ship. So it's an immediate sync that only affects them, and it would be a good sync. It doesn't affect they don't have to do anything across the entire game scale.
Okay. Yeah. I like it. I like that idea, because one thing you're not doing is you're not going, yeah, those components that you had on there, yeah, you lost them. Because that's probably, I don't know how overly punishing that is yet, but in the current game experience, it's too punishing. Because those components are quite expensive. I mean, we've been playing for a year, and I've bought components when I've lost them for whatever reasons, and I don't have much money in my account anymore. So with the current system, I like this. I like where your head's at. I think you were way too big brain at the beginning for me to understand, but this is simple, easy, and very similar to the same changes they made with mining, where they want you more engaged with the mining mechanic instead of just scanning, looking for one rock, basically.
Yeah, also it makes people have value in the ship they already have, because topping off a ship that's already refueled infinitely faster than waiting for an entire fill up, a restock, and then you have to wait for your shields, then you can go out,
Sure. Yeah. I'm trying to think of what the other subjects were. I mean, what about just them making a change like this in the first place in the state that the game is in?
I think I still think the general issue is their reliance on time sinks when time isn't scale. Time is a real world commodity. Money isn't.
Yeah.
Money can be gained through in game. You can't gain time. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So it's the worst. It's what kills games because the value of your game time is weighed against your real life. You
Bro,
know, you
it's like a
can't avoid
mobile
it.
game mechanic, but they're not adding the microtransactions on it.
Yeah, but I'm just
It's like
saying
what
you
it
don't
feels
get.
like almost.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's a point where when you pick up a game and say I'm going to play for an hour, you sit there, it's like what will I get done in an hour in this game, and that decision determines if you'll even play or not.
Yeah.
Like depending on if you have a million whatever fake money in the game and they give you another million, sure, you can just do that. There are hundreds of ways to get that money and it doesn't affect the real world. But you can't get the time back. An hour's an hour.
Yeah. 100%. Like I say that too when it comes to mining. People are like, "Well, cargo hauling is better than mining cuz I make more money doing it." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. You like invest your money in game though." And like the way you explain it, it's like, "Well, now you're making me think like is it better cuz when I lose like a full cargo hold of ore cuz of a bug or somebody killing me or something like that, I lost that time." And for me, I keep going like, well, whatever, it's time. But, it's not something you can ever get back. It's true.
So yeah, so that's why I'm just thinking that again, I don't really have the words to explain the idea of scaling. I just think that putting a general framing into something like that would help them visualize how to develop their time sinks in a more gamey way. Because I think when you make it hard time, you apply hard time values to it, you can mismatch, and then before you know it, they put 100 hours of time sinks in, or you have Eve where it takes you like 4 or 5 real hours to get where you're going because it's scaled against a real time 24-hour clock versus WoW where a day in Azeroth is X amount of time and they just speed up everything to get there, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I think
But
I see what you mean, but I still think that they balance the time that things take in Azeroth based off of like the amount of time people play in real life and what would be acceptable and what wouldn't and so on and so forth. So
well, I'm just saying that Blizzard in their minds has decided what is the average play time. They're probably saying the average person has to play has 2 or 3 hours a day of play time. How to make that work so it's fun for that 2 or 3 hours, but then and then to so someone's like, okay, I can get something done. I can enjoy this game if I have 2 or 3 hours versus you know, if you like just say it's 24 hours and you have Eve where you have to sit down and it's like, okay, if I don't have 8 hours for sitting here doing nothing, I'm not going to have a good time or I'm wasting my time.
yeah. Sorry, I hit my keyboard by accident and the cat jumped off me. She was sitting on me this whole time and everybody thinks I like whacked her. She just got
I
scared.
hope I didn't. Don't throw those cats. People get upset,
I know. Yeah. People are waiting on Twitch for you to throw a cat at somebody.
But I will say
yeah.
this, that the devs need to be honest. I think the one thing is that the devs need to use this as a communication, a wake up call to remind people there are other things coming. I think
I like that. Yeah.
people are not remembering that you're flying around solo in a Retaliator in a Carrack right now. Those people are going to need crew. Those ships are going to, this idea of I can single fly every single ship in the game. That there's
the
sinks and
Perseus
stuff
Q&A. Can I solo the
Yeah.
ship stuff? Like, oh god.
Yeah, so I'm just saying like they have to slowly. They're so like not talking about it. People are forgetting this is coming, and I think that this is just the start. Death is coming. This is saying this is death. This is what's going to happen when you die. They started talking about death as a salesman. I think that was their attempts, but they should have said this. They shouldn't have just said, "Well, we'll just put this death as a salesman back in your head," and then okay, here's what we mean. They should have said, this is where we're looking at right now, and led people. That would have been what? They talked about that a month and a half ago.
Yep.
They should have led into that, talked about it up to this point, and not just made a 3-day, okay, we just doing this. It's like, sucks to be you,
Yeah. It's gonna be tough, man. It's gonna be, that actually kind of scares me for the next year. I'm really hoping the next year brings more game elements and better stability and hopefully server meshing and iCache and those important things. But what I'm worried about is as they're testing these things, when we're in a game experience that's not stable and really tough to deal with, that it might be another rough year next year. Might be another rough year.
Yeah, especially when they're talking about like these frustrations when you're talking about inventory. If their ideas is to make you have to manage a clunky inventory on purpose,
no,
that's bad development.
No. They're implying that when you die, your ass is getting looted. That's what they're implying there.
Okay. I thought it was.
It
almost sounded like it's like get used to having to stack your water before you leave.
No,
I think some of that stuff is a little petty and trivial things. They need to get rid of a lot of these petty sinks and put practical ones in. And I think there's too many like literally having to go buy food one at a time instead of using a kiosk. There's a lot of petty stuff that needs to get out of here.
Sure. Well, I guess, is there anything else you want to add before we call it a show?
I would just say, I just hope, again, like I said, if they're listening, don't make it like a week. Okay, we turned on. You see those guys walking around? You have to hire them, and we turned off all the AI of all the ships until you hire people. But we forgot to figure out how to pay them. Good luck.
Sure. Yeah. Well, all right.
And also, if they are hearing, they need to fix the Connie. That's about it.
I thought they made it better. I haven't tried it yet.
I don't know. It still does that where you have to hold it a few seconds to get it off the pad. There are hundreds of problems with it, but yeah, they just need to be honest and say, I would give anything if they just say, look, are we going to refit it or are we going to redo it? If they just said they redo it and just let you know, it's like, look, we're just going to go back to the drawing boards with the Connie, I'd be happy because at least that's something. They could be vague about it, but right now,
they said that a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're good. You good. Yeah, it was you really should watch my weekend review videos, but I'm just kidding. I think it was a Star Citizen Live. They talked about that they are going to go back, like all the old ships are obviously going to get brought up to the standard of the ships. All the older ships are going to get brought up to the standard of the last ship they make at some point.
Yeah, because all I can remember from back then was when they were talking about the Taurus and why it took so long, and they're like, it's an easy ship to walk away from,
Yeah.
But all right. Which wasn't positive at all. So.
No. But all right, Bad Words, we're going to let you go. I hope you have a great holiday and a happy new year if we don't see you. So be good. Stay safe.
You do.
Have a great one.
Take care.
Bye now. All right, guys. Another Answer the Call in the books. I thought it was a good show. I thought a lot of people I think everybody had good points. Bad Words had me like tripping at the beginning there. I was like, what is time? I don't even know what's going on. But then I thought we got to it, and it was pretty good. And Jerry's call and the Q and Wind. It was good. It was a great show. I thought it was really awesome, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think most importantly, I'd love to hear from people in the YouTube comments of any ideas of how to improve this system or change it in any way to kind of either make the wait more engaging, like Bad Words touched on, or remove it altogether and replace it with something more interesting. Because that's where I take the most issue with it. It's not so much how much money you have to spend, it's how much time you have to wait. I don't want to wait, I want to play. So I hope we could figure out a way to make the system better, simpler, more fun, more engaging. And yeah, everybody, I hope you have a wonderful holiday. No matter what holiday you celebrate. I assume we will be here before the new year for another show. What I was thinking of doing was on the next show was something like with Cyberpunk 2077's release being pretty rocky. How do we feel about Star Citizen's development now? Like, you know, Cyberpunk is the what was the game that came out? It was like a Destiny kind of game that BioWare put out that was just terrible. I think it was BioWare. It was an EA game. What was the name of that game? Not No Man's Sky. Anthem. Yeah. Like this is this year's Anthem, right? In the sense of that. So I'm kind of thinking of that for next week, but I will keep everybody updated. I'll post a YouTube, Twitter, and Discord post about what we end up talking about next week. So everybody, have a wonderful holiday. Catch you next time. Leave a like, comment, all that stuff. Stop by our Discord if you haven't yet. Our Discord is very active all throughout the day and night. Star Citizen topics, all sorts of other ones. If you're watching on Twitch and you didn't catch the whole show, it'll be up on YouTube later today. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to stop by my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/SaltEMike. I stream every day but Monday, so I can get week in review out, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern time until about now each day. So I hope you guys all have, well, now would be 11 a.m. Eastern time. So have a great one, guys. Enjoy yourselves. Bye, everybody.